I recently made a comment on Board Game Geek that I am more interested in journaling games now than when I first started doing solo RPG. And at the outset of solo RPG, I was decidedly uninterested in journaling games. And I don't know whether the games themselves have changed, or my approach has changed, or my expectations have changed, but I find myself increasingly drawn to them. And the one that we're going to discuss here, Tangled Blessings, is a Magic Academy horror role-playing game. It is a journaling game that uses tarot cards to involve the prompts and the kind of aspects of writing, and we'll get into that later, in telling a story of a student at a magical academy. And we'll take a look at what it says on the back. It says it's 1 to 2 players, so it is a GM-less narrative journaling storytelling game that you can play solo or with 2 players. I would say you could even play it with 4 players, and I will talk about how to do that. Let's take a look at the back here. On the eve of your final exam at Blackroot Academy, a magical college for adults, what mysteries, secrets, dangers, friends, and ghosts will you recall from your last 4 years of schooling? Find out and challenge your rival in one last magic duel. This is playable in 1 or multiple sessions with natural breaks, and the natural breaks are each 4 years of the school. Supporting solo or 2-player, as mentioned, doesn't require a character sheet because there are no skills to track, and it is diceless. Only the tarot cards are required to play. Now, you can use any set of tarot cards you want. I went with my Hermetic Tarot because I feel that the imagery on here is in line with the kind of darkish themes of the story. And you can see these cards here. I did, as a secondary source, refer to some of the meanings that are in the booklet, but you don't need that because the game itself will provide you with some suggested meanings for the major arcana here, as well as the prompts and things that are actually the meat of the game in the book. Now, I will say up front, the designer who sent me this copy of the book has asked that I not show the prompts in the video, and typically I don't do that anyway, so you're not going to be seeing too much really, or any of the prompts, the actual prompts, but I'm going to take you through how you play the game and a little bit of the story that I developed for my character while playing to explain what this is. There are some random tables in the book, some generators here if you to supplement what you are filling out or what you are generating from the prompts themselves. So there's a ghost generator, what the previous life was, how many years they spent as a ghost, where it haunted, why. There's creature generators because you may encounter creatures in the course of the prompts. And then there are, as I showed you, the major arcana meanings, and then you can have some faculty and staff generators. So you could encounter a professor of history who's always bringing bad news. They're chaotic and loyal, and they never walk, they always hover. And remember, this is a magical academy. And then there are generators for students, either yourself, your rival, or others, that will tell you what their secret are, what house they live in, what for year and position they are, and what their personality is. So these are used to kind of flesh out your story. All right, so let's take a look at how does the author describe this game? In this game, you take on the role of a student at a mysterious and magical academy for adults. You're finishing your last year, and in fewer than 24 hours, you will face your rival in one last exam before graduation. As you prepare and study, you'll reflect on the previous 4 years at the academy, what you've learned, what has happened. It's a solo journaling or 2-player role-playing game featuring a wizarding school, ghosts, rivals, houses, and curses. You should be able to play in one sitting, but if you really enjoy exploring the prompts, you can spread out your play sessions, and then there is a natural break. Whoops, sorry about that. I just ran out of space. That has not happened to me in a while. In any case, there are natural breaks because you're doing 4 years of the school. I should say also, it's based on this anamnesis game. I have not played that game, but if you're familiar with that game, some of the mechanics are based on that, and I should have shown the credit here to that other game as well as other inspirations. All right, so we are going to skip over some of the backstory here and just talk about more of the mechanics, and that way preserving the unfolding of the story for you if you decide to play this game. You are starting out and defining your own character, your name, your pronouns. How did you get summoned to this academy? What loose ends do you have to tie up? What do you hope to gain by becoming a mage? And how did the speaking gem talk to you in dreams? And the speaking gem has to do with the story of this game that I won't necessarily get into. The setup is you take your tarot deck and you're separating it into 5 decks. So you've got the 4 suits and then the major arcana. And those 4 suits, wands, pentacles, cups, and swords, are going to be what you draw upon to create the prompts for each of your 4 years of the school, whereas the major arcana are used slightly differently in a very interesting mechanic where you will be taking your, let's say we're doing the year of the swords. We have our prompts for the year, and then we would be drawing from our major arcana, and I think I'm sort of in between having this sorted out or not. The major arcana are then drawn to, I just laid them out when I was playing, but I think you're meant to do them one at a time to kind of inform your narrative. So in the book Tangled Blessings, you would be able to look up the 9 of Swords in the year of Swords and get a prompt. It's a paragraph. It gives you a few sentences about a situation perhaps, and then it asks you some questions. And that is your prompt for fleshing out what is happening to your character in the story. But then you can draw from the major arcana, and in so doing, you use the interpretation of this card, which, as mentioned, there's some very light interpretations of that in the book. I drew also upon what is given in the booklet that comes with my tarot deck to help you and direct you a little bit, if you wish, in answering the question about your following the major prompt. And I like that because it is somewhere between, it is journaling completely, but you're given a little bit of an external direction or suggestion from the interpretation of the major arcana card. And I find that to be helpful because you're not just faced with essentially writing an entire story yourself. So, for example, in my story that I played out, the first scene that my character was there to avenge a family situation and that had arisen thousands of years in the past. So in my story opened up where my character noticed a fellow student at the academy who was there with that other student's parents. And that meant that there was a lineage in the other student, a magical lineage in the other student, and the parents were still part of the community. And this had an impact on my own character's will to achieve what she was there to achieve. And I'm not going to get into too many details about it because I don't want to give away what the prompts are, but I used the cards to direct that interpretation of it. And then what happened next was my character became so purposeful and determined and sure that they were going to be easily successful in their quest, let's put it that way, that they were overconfident. And in the overconfidence that they had, something bad then happened. But then they were rescued by a ghost familiar that came to help them and was from the conjured from the past of one of their friendly relatives, one of my character's friendly relatives who were there to help. And the first year then took on, from the outset of this kind of vengeance and very dramatic story, almost an affectionate, humorous situation where my character was full of bluster and big intentions, and really taken down a whole bunch of notches by what ended up happening in the academy, and then kind of rescued by the ghost sent from someone in her family who was sort of had the type of sense of like, yeah, we knew this person was not the one to send on this errand, basically. And so humor developed out of it, out of the storytelling, out of the cards that I was drawing, out of the prompts that I got from the book. And as I've said in other videos, it's very hard, I think, when doing solo RPG. One of the hardest things to have happen in solo RPG, I find, is for a humorous situation to develop. But that's really what happened at the end of my first year. And it was really the way this little otherworldly ghost, this friendly ghost, showed up as the spirit of someone else to be like, here I am, I'm needed here, obviously. But then, based on the prompts here, as we got into the second year, the tenor changed, really, and we got back a little bit more toward this sense of danger, and actually this is not quite a funny thing after all, and there was a lot of struggle, a lot of strife, and some very dramatic things happened, including finding a secret message in the library that suggested that somebody in my character's inner circle, not her rival, but somebody in her family, somebody who she thought was a supporter, might have been a traitor after all. And then there were questions about who that might be and what that could mean in the context of her quest. So the game continues this way, with the basic mechanic of drawing the cards of the suit for the relevant year. And at the same time you're doing that, after you complete your narrative, you are then drawing 3 more cards from the same suit. Those are the cards of your rival. Now, there is a conceit in this game that follows a lot of the kind of dark academy storytelling conceits, where you have an academic rival. Now, the rival can be somebody that is actually your enemy. It can be a former friend. It could be a lover or a former lover. Doesn't matter. You create that for yourself, but they are sort of parallel to you as your story unfolds. You do not need to develop their responses to prompts. You can use these cards, referring back to the same prompts in the book, if you want to give them more of your story. What I did, for a variety of reasons as I was developing my story, was just to weave into my story the story of my rival, but keeping the cards pulled as per the instructions. The game, as it is meant to be played at the very end of your years at the academy, is to have a final, it's called the final exam, and you are then essentially pulling, you're sorting through the cards of your relevant year, and almost like in a game of war, you are just flipping them over and seeing which is the higher value card from that suit, and you will then win that year. And then in the end, based on that, you will either win or lose this exam, this contest with your rival. And there are questions here to help you narrate what happens if you win, lose, or tie. Now, as much as I loved playing this game, and I did, that part of it, I have to say, fell a little bit short for me. I think it would be more effective, perhaps, if you were playing with a two-player model where you were essentially developing your own story and your friend that you were playing with was developing their own story, and then you could use the mechanic of this card kind of besting each other at the end to help you draw the game to a conclusion. As a true solo game, though, it didn't really do much for me. The way I was developing my story, I didn't need or even want that mechanic to help me figure out what happened at the end. I was able to bring things to a conclusion on my own without the use of that. So for a true solo play, I personally didn't find that to add very much, but I could see where if you played this with one other person, or I could definitely see this game being played with 4 people, because you could have 2 people working together on each side to develop, kind of co-narrate what is happening to their character and tell that story in response to 2 other people who were also playing. So I think it could actually also work pretty effectively for 4 people. Now, the other thing I would say about the prompts is I would have wanted a little bit more in terms of, if you were going to develop prompts for your rival, another set, now it's asking for a lot because it's kind of doubling the content, but another set of actual prompts for the rival, because part of the reason I didn't go back to the prompts for each year to read a prompt, say, for the 4 entry, if I had drawn the 6, was because I wanted to, there's really only one set of entries for each suit. And I was thinking like, well, if I play this again, I don't really want to reveal the, another whole set of prompts. I would like to keep those fresh for if I played this game again on my own, or if I played this with friends. So that was another reason why I decided to omit any particular actual prompts for the rival cards and instead just use them for their values at the end for the final showdown. Overall, though, I would highly recommend this game as a very thematic journaling game. I think it does help if you use cards that are sort of reflective of a dark horror motif, and you can interpret the cards in addition to and beyond what is here. So it becomes a little exercise in doing that. I actually put on some ambient RPG horror music while I was working on this, and the morning that I was playing it, it was raining outside, so it all really came together nicely. And it is the core idea of taking the 4 suits and correlating them to 4 years of a magical academy and using the major arcana to influence the storytelling and the narration is great. I don't know. I did not play the game upon which this is based, so I don't know whether that arose in the other game or here, but I really did love it, and I thought it added just enough structure to a journaling game to get you going and not make you feel too much like you are under pressure to come up with a written narrative yourself. So if you like anything to do with kind of dark academy and dark magic, and if you've gone to graduate school, for example, and you've had a rival in school and you're interested in anything to do with magic or magical academies, I would definitely take a look at Tangled Blessings. It offers a lot in the slim package, and it definitely does have replay value, especially if you keep track of the cards that you yourself drew for your own prompts. Because if you don't repeat those cards, you're not going to get the same prompts. You could even repeat those cards with a different major arcana and get something, get a different kind of direction. Although I think the best way to preserve the replay value is to keep track of the prompts that you actually used and make sure that the next time you play through it, you're getting different prompts.